Welcome to Planet on Crunch. I'm Doug Gibson, and today we have Matthew E. Banks from Cornwall, England, as our guest today. And Matthew is the author of a book I recently read and just loved, Where Does Imagination End and Reality Begin? Re-examining the horror classics. And they deal with the universal classics that came out so long ago. And I just love this book. Matthew, tell us a little bit.
Thank you.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you became a fan and then a writer of the cult genre.
When I was little, many years ago, you used to get cards with bubble gum, and I used to get the old Universal black and white steel ones with the purple surround. And then many years later, my dad managed a hotel in Newquay, and on a Sunday, if it was raining, he'd put on a film show, and he put on a Bela Lugosi compilation. So I must have been about 7. So and between the two things, that really sealed my love of horror. And then quite a few years ago, We Belong Dead relaunched itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I offered up my take on The Black Cat, which started the ball rolling, really.
So The Black Cat was published in We Belong Dead, right? The Black Cat essay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't get to that magazine as much as I should. But it's a fantastic magazine, We Belong Dead. They do a wonderful job.
The editor, the publisher, Eric
McNaughton?
Yes,
Ooh.
he's to blame for the majority of this. Because we were discussing, and I said about doing a piece about Dracula's daughter, and it's going to be like 3,000 to 4,000 words, and then like 2 years later it was like nearly 18,000 words, and it was more of a book chapter than anything else. But that was the longest piece I've done research wise, because that was 2 years, not constant, because I do other writings as well, and I've got work and what have you. But as an overall piece from start to finish, that was 2 years, and that was on Eric's behest. But then it turned from an article into its own monster, because there was just so much to talk about with that particular film. It just kept growing and growing.
And then you found a publisher, it's Bear Manor Media, right?
Yes, that came about from Scott Allen Nolan, rest his soul. He suggested them to me and said that I should contact Ben, Omar, and see what he said. So I sent him the manuscript of Dracula's daughter, and he emailed me back and said yes, he was interested, and then the book was born from there.
Well, fantastic. It's great you had a father who got you interested in these movies. That's fantastic.
I don't think he was aware of what he was doing, because my dad was very, very broad Scottish, and he had a very wonderful sort of sense of humour. So, like when I was little, so I'm going to say maybe 3, 4. My mum used to go to pottery classes, say on a Monday evening, and my dad would take great delight in putting on a skeleton mask and chasing me around the house. And we had these open plan stairs, so if I was coming down from the attic or whatever, he'd be under the stairs, he would grab my finger, rah! and then I'd scream and stuff like that.
This brings back memories of my dad. My dad he introduced me to repertory theaters, but he liked the old comedy. We'd go see the Marx Brothers, or my father loved Joey Brown. And one time, my dad's dead now, but I got to watch, what's it called? Jeez, my brain goes. But the movie with Lugosi and Joey Brown, drives me crazy because I know the title, all right? And of course, it always fails me when
not broad.
broad-minded,
Broad-minded.
yeah. But you were talking about the cards that you saw.
Yes.
I grew up in Southern California, and we used to go to Universal Studios occasionally, and it was a bit smaller than it is now. But they used to sell for like $1 or so. I don't know the price. They would sell wax, like little statues of the classic Universal monsters. And
okay,
I would give everything to still have one of those. But as a kid, they probably lasted 6 weeks, back then. But those were a thrill to get. So we do have some kind of empathy in what you went through. It's just, my dad wasn't a big Lugosi fan. Well, I want to talk about the books. The first story in there is based on the Black Cat. And of course, that's Edgar Ulmer's opportunity to work with Universal. I think he had an affair with the woman who was married to one of the Lamo family, so he never had a chance again to do that. But what do you think, how much more do you think Edgar Ulmer wanted in that film that was allowed by both Universal brass and censors of the time?
I think a majority of what he wanted was taken out.
Okay.
I did talk to Philip J. Riley about it because he was going to bring out a script book, and in the end, it came out but without the script. I think what Ulmer's ultimate vision for the Black Cat wasn't what we got, because there was so many reshoots. To have like Karloff crawling after being flayed, that would have been just too much for an audience for 1934. Although you had things like Murders in the Zoo, which was quite graphic in 33.
Yeah, Murders in the Zoo is very graphic. Yeah.
But then you had the Breen Brigade always on their tails, like, you can't do this, you can't do that. Which to some degree I get, because at that time you had kids going into the cinema to see stuff. It's not, I don't like using the term police, but it's not so well policed as it is now. You wouldn't get like a 6-year-old going into an 18 film.
Oh yeah,
which is
definitely
going on way back then.
What I find interesting go on, I'm sorry.
No, you go.
Well, what I find interesting about Breen sometimes, and I can't really think of an example right now, but it may even be one in your book, I'm not sure. Something would pass them by and they would allow it to get through, not understanding the entendre that the filmmakers may have done. I've seen that in some of these movies, particularly the ones that went after the code really cracked down at times.
I'll tell you what I found really interesting in researching all the films that I've done is whatever, like Chicago would cut different things than New York, and the things that New York cut would be things that Chicago hadn't cut, and I find that really fascinating. It's like
a city has its own morals, right? Maybe, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I read somewhere, and I can't remember where, it's probably an archival newspaper, that Lugosi's Return of the Vampire in 43, that was slightly edited towards the end when his face all started melting due to the sun and what have you.
That's interesting.
I would like to see that. I'd like to see all the 8 outtakes from that film.
Wouldn't we all? There's no doubt about that. One thing about, I want to go back to what I said for a second. An example, even though it's not in your book, of I think censors not understanding what a film was doing was like in Cat People, where I don't think they fully understand the sexual aspect of turning her into a beast, all right, in the film.
Yeah.
And it just went right by their heads.
I think they took that as that she literally did turn into a monster.
Yeah.
And I think that, see, those sort like Turnier was an expert at creating atmosphere and making you see with things one way when it could be another way. He was absolute expert at that, in my opinion.
Oh, he was. He was. I mean, they just took well, I'm starting to veer away from what we're supposed to talk about. The last thing I'll say is I think RKO took away Universal's horror creds in the mid 1940s, but that's just another topic, more or less. Can I ask you about Lugosi in The Black Cat? The original script had him be much more of a villainous person, right?
Yes. He tries to rape David Manner's wife. Is that the two of them, Karloff and Lugosi, are both as equally morally reprehensible, really. And when it came to redoing the shoots and that, they wanted a clear. I think my understanding is they wanted a clear. One was good but damaged, and one was bad and damaged. And Lugosi got to be the goodie in that one, so to speak. But that when you watch the film, try not to watch without a critical. They're really both dead. Yeah. They both died at Marnemus. One just becomes like, well, Karloff is represented as like a living dead character. Like when he sits up in bed, he sits up.
That's a creepy scene.
Like a zombie.
Yeah, that is.
Whereas Lugosi's soul was destroyed there, and he's just a broken shell of a person.
Yeah, it's a powerful movie. I think it might be one of the. You might disagree. It might be one of the few films where David Manners gave a great performance, at least a good performance, maybe. He was a lot better in that than he was in Dracula. Yeah, we'll go with that. Yeah, for example. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the Raven, which.
Oh yes.
The Raven. How true is the idea that the Raven ushered in the British ban on horror?
I've read a lot around this, and it wasn't really. It was actually Mad Love with Peter Lorre that really kicked it off. But because it's Karloff and Lugosi, so much more is made of that because of who they are, and obviously because of what the film, context of what's in the film. But it was really Mad Love that.
There are scenes in Mad Love where Peter Lorre looks like he's having an orgasm, to be honest. All right,
and it wasn't really so much a ban as they basically instigated higher ratings, so kids couldn't go in and see the films because they were too young to see. And the thing is, in those days, I don't know if it's the same over in the States, but like my dad would say to me, when he went to the cinema, you'd pay a threepence to get in, and then you could stay in the cinema all day watching the same film over and over again.
That's interesting.
So when they brought in these new rules that basically anyone under 16 could not go in to see an 18 film.
That's, my father...
So it was the ratings that really caused the ban more than anything else, my understanding.
My father told me in his time period, because he was born in 1931, when you went to the movies, you would see... First, you'd see a cartoon, and then you'd see a newsreel, and then you'd see a short. And one of my joys now is watching on Turner Classic Movies, Saturday mornings, their various serials they show. But he'd say you'd see a serial, and then you would see a B movie, maybe like Murder by Television or something, and then you would see the main thing. So you would literally spend 3 to 3.5 hours there. But I don't think I'm not aware of it being open the whole day for them.
Um, I can only go by what my dad told me.
Yeah.
Mind you,
Well, you're talking about
he,
Great
he,
Britain, right? Though.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like when I was a lot younger, you'd go to the cinema and you'd sometimes have a short film before, and then you'd have the main film. You'd have a whole host of trailers beforehand.
Oh, we got trailers today. We have ads between trailers.
Trailers,
I know
trailers, that's the film.
we have advertisers between trailers now. It drives me crazy, but what can you do? It's time, It's well. Tell me what you think of Lugosi's performance in The Raven. Some people rave it's one of his greatest. Some people don't like it, think it's over the top. What do you think?
You've got me here, you see, Dad, because I am a Lugosi fan.
So am I.
And I don't think it's over the top. I think he plays it just right because he is insane. And that's how his insanity comes out. I mean, like if you take Karloff in The Invisible Ray, for example, who is also insane due to the radiation, he doesn't come across as insane. Whereas Lugosi's obsession with Poe and all the torture devices, and also megalomania from being like the top doctor and what have you, I think he plays it just right. I think when he relates about when a great man is in love, he should be allowed to love, and if that love is taken away from him or denied, it will drive him insane. If he hadn't played it the way he did, I don't think that would have been as believable.
Oh, I agree with you. I actually agree with you. I think he has to be insane, and he has to give that kind of performance to go from wanting this woman to wanting to kill her at the very end of the movie. Definitely. Now, there's something else I wanted to ask about this film, and maybe others too. They always seem to have a bit of comedy relief in these Universal horrors. Like they feel they need to have them. I can't remember. The woman calls her husband, presumably Pinky, in The Raven and things like that. And you have a guy who eats too much and falls asleep through the whole thing. What's your opinion on having the comedy relief? Does it provide the viewer some kind of relief from what the intensity they're getting on the screen?
Yeah, I think that, but especially like with The Raven, because like the torture and what's that above me? Oh, I'm going to torture you and what have you, and the horror of like where although Jack Pierce's makeup for Karloff in that film is particularly dire, it's still horrific. So I think the light entertainment is you've got your shock, you laugh, your shock, you laugh, and so on and so forth. So it's not so horrific to the audience. I think maybe.
I think so. It's even in the Black Cat, you have the two policemen, I think, that visit.
Yes.
And then you have that little throwaway line at the end where David Manners reads a review of his book or something, And
yeah.
And I
see that annoys.
What?
See, that annoyed me because they did a similar thing with The Raven, and she says to her boyfriend, "Oh, you're basically The Raven. You've basically caused these deaths." I thought, no, it could have ended a lot better.
Yeah, I think inside the movie, the middle of the movie is a good idea, but having those little quips at the end when someone's been through an absolutely traumatic experience, you wonder if they really needed to do that. But I wonder if that was a way to sort of influence the people who might censor the film. I don't know. It's just perhaps that.
It would be nice to if someone who isn't me, found all the archival records of the censorship for all the films and like brought out or edited together a book of all the censorship letters. Because like Dracula's Daughter, that went through so many different scripts before it. I mean, it was still working on the script when they went into production, and that's probably one of the reasons why Lugosi isn't in the film, because originally, you'll be aware, he was going to be in it.
Yeah, there's a Bear Manor Media book all on the making of Dracula's Daughter I purchased several years ago.
That was by my friend Gary D. Rhodes.
Yeah, Gary was interviewed on Plan 9 Crunch in May. So if you haven't seen it, go to our Plan 9 Crunch and look it up. All right. It was a lot of fun.
I have that downloaded.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate it. And so, okay, I want to talk briefly about Invisible Ray. What do you think of the idea to sort of switch the characters to where Karloff was the mad scientist and Lugosi was the calm contemporary?
I thought it was very clever.
Mm-hmm.
I think it showed Lugosi in a different light. Very matter of fact, like, oh, what do you do if he touches you? He goes, you die. But he was there trying to help Karloff. And Karloff's character is really interesting. He's like so under his mother's thumb, and yet he's married to this very beautiful woman that he doesn't even look at. But the most annoying thing about the Invisible Ray is all the big murders, you just hear about it. You don't get to see him do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it detracts away from it. I think they should have shown him doing all the killings or what have you.
I think so too. It almost seems like a reaction to the pressure that was given to the industry in the mid-30s, right? Toning it down a little bit. Yeah, definitely. I always like to contrast that film with Karloff's performance in The Walking Dead, which I think is a pretty good movie, which also probably got toned down some thanks to what's going on, in the mid-30s.
Yes, I just covered that recently for... I think that was for We Belong Dead, off the top of my head.
Well, I'm going to make a goal right now. I'm going to buy an issue of We Belong Dead, okay? All right, I'll do that. It's a little bit expensive, but I want to read it. If you have something on The Walking Dead, I want to read that. Now, one more question on The Walking Dead just came to me. Is there a moral conflict between the woman who's Karloff's wife initiating relationship, or is she excused because of Karloff's single-mindedness and slow descent into insanity? What do you think?
Well, he leaves her open to the advances of other people. I mean, we take it that she's really young, so I took it that she was like very late teens, possibly very early 20s, because obviously Karloff's character had worked with her father. And he's so self-absorbed that he doesn't notice her at all. And then when he obviously gets the ray and can't touch anything and he hides himself away, she takes that as rejection. And I think that leaves her open vulnerability to be taken advantage of. And I think she is taken advantage of due to her age. But also Karloff does absolutely nothing to like make her think that he wants to be with her and that he loves her and stuff like that. So I think it's two of one and half a dozen of another, but Karloff really has no one else to blame for his wife falling for another man other than himself, because even Lugosi says to him, are you going to tell your wife? And he goes, no, I'm not. And then he has a hissy fit that everyone's against him. Well, they're not against him. You've just treated everyone like pants and still expect them all to be there. But life isn't like that.
Yeah. And let's go to Dracula's Daughter. I think that's your big one, right? I think the title character does a really good job, or is she too passive?
Well, one of the questions I ask in my chapter on that is she really a vampire?
Yeah, you do.
Or is her henchman actually the vampire and he's just manipulating her?
That's a fascinating question. When you brought that up, I was thinking to that into the night, because obviously Sandor is no Renfield, right? He's quite more
No.
powerful than that.
And he manipulates her all the way through, and the Margaret Churchill comedy stuff in it really is annoying. But who actually hypnotizes her? Is it with the ring, or does Sandor bop her on the head? Because she says to Sandor, take her out. Not take her out, but take her out. And the other thing that really gets me with Dracula's daughter is you never see, other than the scene with Lily, you never see her attack a woman. In fact, you don't really see her attack Lily. You just say, no, don't look at me like that. And it goes to the shot of the mask. But you do see her attack men. Like when she's walking through the streets of London and she sees the guy in the top hat and what have you.
That's interesting. Do you think... go on, I'm sorry.
And I was going to say, like, when... spoilers, Pete, so I do apologise. When she's killed at the end, right, had she been a vampire that had lived for, 150 years, like I think Van Helsing says, she would have turned into a skeleton and not...
That's a good point. That's a good point.
So it does raise questions as to whether Zaleska's got some form of mental illness where she believes she's a vampire, or she's been that utterly brainwashed by Sandor. Because, when she's playing the piano and she says, "Oh, what do you think of this music?" La 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 la, and then she says, "What do you see in my eyes?" and he goes, "Death." He could have said, "Oh, that's really nice music," rather than go down the trips of that's the darkness in your soul and what have you.
Now, if they'd had the original screenplay, we would have definitely thought that the daughter of Dracula.
We would have definitely known that she was the daughter of Dracula had we had the original screenplay. But that was because James Whale didn't want to direct it. He was determined not to direct it. So he did, him and Richard Sheffield did everything to sabotage it. So he didn't have to direct it.
Why did Whale not want to do it? I just wonder.
Because he didn't want to do another horror film because he'd done The Bride of Frankenstein. And I think he was sort of pushed into that, and he wanted to get on and do Showboat. But another part of me thinks he just didn't want to work with Lugosi. Because although Lugosi was due to be in the original Frankenstein, he didn't want to do the Robert Flores script because he just would have played a grunting, brainless monster. And I get that's why he didn't want to do it. But then when Whale came on board, my little bit of logic is there's no reason why Whale couldn't have had him play Victor Frankenstein.
I just think Whale didn't like him, right? Probably. Or didn't like his talent, didn't think his talents were legitimate for his...
I just don't think he liked him.
Yeah.
And then when it came to Bride of Frankenstein, and you're going to get probably millions of hits on this, but I think Carl Lemmy Jr. wanted Lugosi for the Dr. Prestoris role, and he was vetoed for that as well.
Wow. The guy that played, what is his name? Ernest Thesiger, right?
Yes,
He was good, and I also love him in A Christmas Carol too. I think he's really good in that movie.
I like him in The Old Dark House.
Oh yeah, he's fantastic in that. You're absolutely right. And I'll mention one more I just saw on YouTube. Although it was a horrible print, a movie called They Drive by Night. I caught, and I really enjoy him.
Oh, I've not seen that one.
Okay, it's not the one that's the Hollywood one. It's called They Drive by Night. It's a 1938. I think it's 38. And Ernest Thesiger plays the bad guy in it. It's a good movie.
Okay.
You might enjoy watching it. But the print I found on YouTube, and things might have changed by now, was pretty poor on it.
Okay.
Remember I talked about the censors not understanding what filmmakers intended? What do you think about the scene with Lily? It got through the censors, and now everyone says it has hints of lesbian, and is it? Do you think that was an intention, or do you think that's just something that resulted from people observing the scene, or did the censors miss it?
I would like to think that at that time it was a lot more innocent.
Mm-hmm.
I know we were heading towards the Second World War and bad things were happening in the world, but not everything was under a microscope at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know some of the publicity for it, like she gives you the weird feeling and stuff like that. But when I first came to watch it, I never viewed it as a lesbian vampire.
Mm-hmm. Too much critical analysis, huh?
I think so. I mean, at the end of the day, if we take the fact that Zaleska is a vampire, then what she's got is a Happy Meal in front of her.
Yeah, exactly. Very good. Yeah.
And are you going to say no to a Happy Meal if you're hungry?
Yeah.
But then I go back to my original point that at the end of the film, when she's shot with the arrow,
she doesn't desiccate, right?
She doesn't die like a vampire.
Well, that turns this movie into a psychological thing where she has an obsession with Dracula, rather than being his actual daughter.
I mean, I'm not going to say that maybe he in some weird and wonderful corrupt way maybe didn't bring her up. Maybe as because we know that he had three brides. And so who's to say that he didn't bring up a normal child?
We need a prequel to Dracula's daughter. Might be fun.
I mean, there was a very, very, very recent good remake of that called Abigail.
Oh, I haven't seen Abigail. I had no idea it has something to do with Dracula's daughter. I'll have to watch it.
And that is a really, really good film. I'm really quite critical when it comes to a vampire film, but it has the right amount of chills. It has comedy in the right places, but it's not so glaring as to like be slapstick or formulaic. And it really did for me. It really works, and in fact, I was that desperate to watch it because we don't where I live, we don't always get all the films. So we get to see all the trailers and stuff like that, and we think, oh yeah, we really want to see that film, but we don't get it. So I actually watched it in Spanish.
No kidding.
I have no idea what they were saying. But I watched it in Spanish.
I speak Spanish, but I'd probably have a tough time also because they talk a little too fast for me. But I'm going to watch Abigail now. I tend to be a bit of a snob on the newer movies. My son's trying to get me to watch Sinners tomorrow night. Okay. So we'll see if it's any good.
I am the old black and whites. Yeah. That is my expertise. That's what I really enjoy watching and writing and researching and writing. And what I really like to do is when I do something, I like to find things that are so far forgotten. You wouldn't think about it. Like the old reviews in the newspapers and what have you. I like to incorporate them because otherwise,
you do that very well in your book, by the way. Yes.
Oh, thank you. But I think that those little slices of history are important because they relate to a modern audience, how an audience back then, especially journalistic point of view, how they see the films, and what have you. And yeah.
Now let's talk about.
I like to incorporate. Sorry.
No, I don't want to cut you off, but Tower of London. I'll just ask you one question, unless another one comes to my mind. Who is the greater villain, Boris Karloff or Basil Rathbone?
Oh, oh, that's a hard one. You see, you have to feel sorry for Maud, Karloff's Maud, because he doesn't. You do see the turmoil when he has to go and kill the princes in the tower.
Yeah,
you see that turmoil, but right back at the beginning of the film, you also see he takes pride in his job as chief torturer. But I would say Basil Rathbone was a complete and utter,
okay,
perfectly played, absolutely. How the pair of them didn't actually get Oscar nominated for that film because they both played their respective roles so absolutely perfect.
You know why they didn't get nominated? Because there were reviewers back then like Bosley Crowther, okay, of the New York Times, who made a history of denigrating Universal horrors. And someday I want to do a semi-serious piece lampooning Bosley Crowther's reviews of the Universal classics. Look him up sometime, all right? He didn't like it. He was the most influential critic in America at that time. Wrote for the New York Times. But, you know, I'm kind of crazy here because people laugh at me for this. And you're probably going to laugh. But I actually, on a pure enjoyment level, enjoy the cheapo version of Tower of London from 1962 with Vincent Price.
Is that with Vincent Price?
Yeah. It's so incredibly over the top. All right.
Yeah.
But I do realize the Universal 39 version is a better film. Anybody else in that? Vincent Price had a small role in that movie. And I think he gets...
Did he?
Yes, he does. Look it up. I think he gets killed early in the film. If I'm wrong, I'll apologize next week. But I think I'm right that he's in that movie.
No, to be fair, I haven't watched it. Generally speaking, once I watched it, I watch a film, then I'll watch it as a viewer. Then I'll go back and I'll rewatch it with my writing head on, and I'll take some notes. And then from there, I start looking up the history of when production started, when people started getting the roles, and then I'll build up from there. With the exception of my second biggest chapter in my book, which is I Married a Witch.
Which we're going to go to right now. And I got to tell you something. I had never had any desire to watch that movie until I read your chapter, and then I went right and watched the movie, okay? And
oh, wow.
Yeah. And I enjoyed it. I think it's a bit lighthearted, all right, for its subject matter, perhaps. But
did you see what I mean when I say it is a horror movie at its heart?
Yes, at its heart, yes. Because, I mean, you could even say it belongs in the same cousins of a film like Black Sabbath, or is it Black Sunday? Black Sunday, but of course it's not as dire like that and everything.
Yeah.
That is basically what it is. And I also, once again, I'm going way over the top here maybe, but when I was watching that movie, it reminded me a little bit, not in plot, but in feeling and everything, of the time of their lives with Abbott and Costello, which is also a ghost movie. But the movie did stick with me. I found Veronica Lake I'd only seen in Sullivan's Travels, and I thought she was very, very good in the movie. I really do. But you talk about some of the drama between the actors and how the lead actor was basically, for lack of a better term, a philanderer type, right?
Yeah,
less.
Frederick Marsh. Yeah,
Yeah.
couldn't keep it in his pants.
And I
And
can't,
she was having none of it.
yeah, definitely. And then she was somebody, ended up having a bit of a tragic life after that, right? And
Yes. Yeah. She was I think she was borderline schizophrenic
mhm,
and an alcoholic.
mhm.
Um which was a shame really, because she ended up losing everything. I think a journalist found her working as being a waitress in New York, and then she did
Flesh
a
Feast.
couple of
Flesh Feast was a movie. She was in a movie called
uh,
Flesh Feast late in her life, I think.
then she did a really interesting interview with Don Conway, I think it is off the top of my head, or Don Cavney, something like that.
Sure.
It's on YouTube anyway. And then she brought out her autobiography, and then she died. So it was all really very sad. I think she was 51.
Yeah, I mean, she is beautiful in that movie. All right, just gorgeous in that film, and I think she is the right person to play that role.
Yes.
And the woman who played McNee's fiance was also very good. What was her name again? She's a famous actress
I'd
too.
have to look it up now, aren't I?
That's all right. Don't worry about it. But there seems to have been a lot of controversy on the direction and the script of that film before it became actual to be, right? People disputing, what they should do with the movie and things like that till it finally came out. If you want to expound on that, we'll allow you right now.
Actually, I'm going to be really naughty and say it's in here.
Okay.
I haven't read my book. I haven't read up on stuff. I have to admit. Rennie Clare fought hard for Veronica Lake.
But he didn't
Frederick
really.
Marsh did everything to sabotage her.
Yeah. And so it turned out to be a really good film, though, and a success, right? Despite all the controversy before it and everything. Do you think it was something World War II audiences wanted as sort of a release from the tension that was going on?
Yes, but I think if memory serves me, I end the chapter with a newspaper article that I came across where it had a cinema full of children, and they were watching I Married a Witch, and the Germans bombed the theatre.
That was horrible. Yes.
And I thought that was important because they were getting some enjoyment from this film, even though at its heart, like I say, it is a horror film. You've got witchcraft, burnings at the stake, even though you don't see it, and what have you. And these kids and young adults are just blown up. And I think it said about the film reel melting.
Yeah, that was heart-wrenching when you wrote about that. That was, it just, it was, it just almost brings a real life horror into the play horror they're watching and stuff like that.
I thought it was important because when films came out in the very late 30s and 40s, people took them for what they were, but they don't. The horror of what was going on around them seemed to almost be out there, and it's not there until it actually hits home. And I think showing that it did hit home, and that incident is part and parcel of the history of I Married a Witch, is really important. Just as much as there was a musical being done in the 60s, and I was very fortunate to have it took, and I cannot say how much, but it took a lot of tracking down, because I'm like a little dog with a bone when I get it, to track down the late Fred Tobias, who wrote the music for this musical of I Married a Witch, which was due to star the chappie who played the lion in The Wizard of Oz, whose name's just gone out of my head.
His name Bolger?
I can't remember. So you see, get to my age, she's just forget names.
Well,
so
I have empathy, okay.
And because Vincent Price was originally due to be in it too, and I did try to contact his daughter to find out if she had any information on it, but I didn't anything. Anyway, Fred Tobias emailed me back after I eventually got in touch with him, and he was 97. And he said that the reason that it just vanished from everything is because a politician got assassinated, and because it was a musical, but it was also political.
Well, it could have been Kennedy, or it could have been the other Kennedy brother. JFK?
Yeah, it was no,
Robert F. Kennedy. Robert F. Kennedy?
Robert F. Kennedy.
Okay.
Yeah, 67.
Well,
so Robert F. Kennedy was assassinated, and then that, according to Fred, that just killed the play dead because it was a political play and it wasn't deemed suitable to go ahead with it once that had happened.
Yeah, Kennedy was assassinated in early '68 after the California primary with a
okay.
So that would make sense.
But Fred said JFK, and I knew it couldn't be JFK because he got assassinated in '63.
Yeah,
because they had to because of Doctor Who, because that came out just before Doctor Who came out.
That's fascinating. Can I ask you a question? Throw this off the wall. Do you think that the American TV show, which I watched as a child, Bewitched, had any inspiration from I Married a Witch?
Oh, definitely.
Definitely?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. In fact, one of the things that I think would have been brilliant is if they could have got Veronica Lake to have been in that.
She could have played Endora. That would have been very interesting.
Oh, no, Agnes Moorehead was absolutely brilliant, but I think, that would have been brilliant.
They had various cousins and stuff like that. She could have been Esmeralda or somebody like that. But talking about Veronica Lake, and you talk about actresses like Barbara Payton from the 50s, Hollywood was very unforgiving to women in that time period.
I think it still is.
Yeah?
I think it still is. And I think, and it's no disrespect to anyone, but I do think that they have this viewpoint of women that once they've gone beyond the body beautiful, that's it, that they're no good. Whereas in fact, they're like wine, they get better with age. And their acting gets better with age, and I think it's really unfair of Hollywood to have the two-tier system where once a woman's gone past the body beautiful, she's shelved, whereas men can just get better with age and get meteor roles. And
that's a good point. That's a good point. I was thinking more of a reclamation for past quote-unquote sins. Like, I know Margot, who's the woman in Superman? Kidder, she fell, but they rose her up again. And I don't think that Lake or Peyton got that opportunity.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, Hollywood decimated them.
Yeah, they
really.
Did. Yeah, it's sad.
And it is. I mean, in Kenneth Anger's Hollywood Babylon, I read a long time ago about this Hollywood actress that kept going for all these roles and didn't get anything. And because back in the day, as you know, it used to be Hollywood Land, and she went up there one day up to the Hollywood land bit, climbed on the top, and committed suicide. And the very next day, the biggest role that would have been made her career, landed on a doorstep, but it was too late. You know, Hollywood is well known for using and chewing up and spitting out women.
Well, that's a good point.
Time and again.
Well, let's go to our next film. Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. Maria, can't pronounce her last name right now. I'm not even going to try. Maria Ospankayo or something. She's a Russian actress.
Yes.
And she died penniless. She died in an accident.
She burned to death.
Yeah,
yeah.
She was very good, but I think she broke her leg in that film. You don't see her at the end. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes. I think the cart went over her leg.
Yeah. What do you think of Lugosi's performance
in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman?
Yeah.
He was very ill. And to be fair, I can't honestly call it a Lugosi performance. I think out of the whole screen time as the monster, I think he's only in it as the monster for about 7 minutes. Now, if we go by the script book and Kurt Sudmark's autobiography and stuff, that all the dialogue was cut out. I'm not surprised it was cut out. I am the oncoming storm. Well, Kurt wrote these lines, so then to say, "Oh, they were rubbish." Well, you wrote them.
Yeah, I'm not a big
your script.
I'm not a big fan of Kurt Siodmak, and I didn't get much warmth for him reading your essay either. He seemed like a guy who didn't like Lugosi in the first part, and just.
I mean, I can see Lugosi going to him and asking for roles and asking for help. I can see that because Universal treated Lugosi like pants.
Yeah.
There are absolutely no two ways about that. They all seem to know when he was down on his luck, and yet he always did his best for them, gave his best performances for them, twice got them out of bankruptcy, and they treated him. So I can see him going to someone like Kurt saying, "Oh, please, have you got a role for me? Please give me a role." But I can see that, and I can understand that. And at the end of the day, like when Universal did Son of Dracula, that should have been a Lugosi role.
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely. And like the bit where you have Lon Chaney have the guy up like that and go, "Put it out." Well, if you go back to Mark of the Vampire, and there's one scene in that where you see Lugosi rush across the thing, and he's angry and what have you, as Count Mora, you could see how Lugosi would have done that scene.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Because Chaney is an aggressive vampire, okay? And Lugosi could have played an aggressive vampire based on what you saw in Mark of the Vampire. I hadn't thought of that before. That's
it sometimes becomes really frustrating because obviously we're all looking at these films now with hindsight. We could have done that, and why didn't they use that angle here, and why did they not do that? And you could see where there could have been little script changes just to tighten up things and what have you. And it sometimes becomes really frustrating when you know somebody else would have been better for the role.
I don't think Lugosi could have played in the House movies with the scripts they had, though, for John Carradine. They would have had to change that, don't you think? Yeah. Because Carradine is a very passive vampire.
That's one way of putting it. But he was closer to how Dracula is portrayed in the novel. But it makes no sense. My logic is, at every given point when Lugosi played a vampire, Universal had an absolute hissy fit and threatened to sue. They threatened to sue MGM over Mark of the Vampire. They threatened to sue Columbia over Return of the Vampire. Any other ideas of a vampire film with Lugosi coming out, they stomped all over it. And yet their one viable product, which was Lugosi, who had a proven track record. You put him in a Vampire Cake, he made money for the studio that he worked for.
Yeah, that's true.
And they never, he was ousted really through all the script changes and taking the time to go into production. I mean, he cancelled a production to go into Dracula's Daughter production to then lose both roles.
I interviewed Bob Kramer last fall, and he had a lot to say about how Universal treated Lugosi also.
Yeah. Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Bob.
It's on the YouTube Plan 9 Crunch page. But, there's one good thing about Lugosi and Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. It's almost an iconic shot when he realizes he has strength again, the look on his face.
Yes.
That's a highlight of the movie, really. It's really strong. I bought the book that has the original screenplay. You probably have it too.
Yes.
And I have to agree with you. The dialogue is pretty weak. What they would have given him.
I mean, I can see why they cut it, but they could. There are shots that they could have reshot with different dialogue, because the film in itself made no sense as to why the Frankenstein monster was blind.
Yeah.
Why he was suddenly speechless, and why he was walking around like this.
Yeah, because they don't tell you. And if you hear Lugosi speak in Ghost of Frankenstein, it's not disastrous, I don't think.
No.
Yeah.
Because the audience are aware that the Frankenstein monster now has Igor's brain. Although how he got Igor's voice box is beyond me, but he's got Igor's brain.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that. Well, continuity in films is something interesting. That's for sure.
But yes, but I'm going to show you another book now, Doug, which is this one.
Critical Readings on Hammer Horror Films.
And on that one, I did The Mystery of the Mary Celeste.
Oh.
Which is the first Hammer horror film and the first British horror film with Lugosi.
Are they ever going to find The Mystery of the Mary Celeste print, do you think, someday?
I do. There's like a 60-minute print.
Oh, I know. I've seen it. It's Phantom Ship. But I know that there's more to the movie.
There's more. My essay in this book is edited.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't got everything in it like I would normally have.
Mm-hmm.
But I do talk about, like, there's shots of the camera going over the boat and it's all eerily empty and what have you. That's gone. There's a bit where the captain and his wife are seen in one scene and then the next minute they're gone.
Well, didn't they have to do a voiceover pretending to be Lugosi at the end of the Phantom Ship?
Yes.
Yeah.
At the end.
Yeah.
But it still didn't make any sense really. And but Lugosi's role in that, going from tortured sailor through to coming out as being the killer, I mean, it's just extraordinary.
It is very extraordinary.
Such a subtle performance.
Yes.
And the one thing that doesn't make sense with the print that is available at the moment is the fact that some of the sailors go to rape the captain's wife and he stops it and protects her. So then to go and then apparently kill the captain and her makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
Well, I just don't think they were thinking about that back then, Monogram. They were thinking, just want to get this movie out into theaters. Yeah, it's a shame, but that's the way it is. What do you think, I'm going off topic here, but what do you think the better performance by Lugosi is? Phantom Ship or Dark Eyes of London?
Oh, I'm going to say The Mystery of the Mary Celeste, and I'll say why. It's because in Dark Eyes of London, when he plays the blind guy, that's not his voice.
That's true.
But when he plays him, the other side of the blind guy, in Dark Eyes of London, and it's his own voice, to me, it's just a standard, well-polished Lugosi performance, with Lugosi being his usual villainous self. Whereas in Mystery of Mary Celeste,
more nuanced,
more depth,
okay,
more depth. More, like when he gets all upset and cries, and is all emotional. It's very rare for Lugosi to give those sorts of performances because he's normally like the main villain. But in something like that, where he's allowed to show more of his versatility, like in Nikochka, where he plays, he's really good in that. And it's just a shame that the system didn't allow him to show that versatility, that they saw him as Lugosi the vampire, full stop. I mean, I know he probably didn't help himself with continual tours of Dracula, or
the poverty road, but he had to make a living, didn't he? More or less.
But had Hollywood been more open to him, then he wouldn't have been as I don't think he would have been as typecast as he was.
It's interesting. I think when I think of Lugosi, I think of Paul Lucas, who had a lot of roles I think that Lugosi could have had, but the difference today is nobody remembers who Paul Lucas was, and everybody remembers Bela Lugosi.
Well, I did an article called "The Vampire Films of Bela Lugosi," where I talk about each one.
What publication is that?
That will be coming out in a We Belong Dead publication.
I'll have to get a subscription. All right.
But Eric's got that, and in it I talk about Hollywood on Parade from 1932, which you can see on YouTube, with Betty Boop singing.
Yeah.
And Lugosi as Dracula comes live, goes, Betty Boop, boop, your last boop, as he goes in. But it says on the card under Lugosi's artwork, Bela Lugosi as Dracula. But when he goes and gets Betty Boo, he is Dracula. So the audience are being led to believe that Bela Lugosi and Count Dracula are one and the same person. It's not as Dracula, he is Dracula. And that, I think, was cemented in the minds of the audiences of that time, bearing in mind that through the 30s and 40s, all these films were being regurgitated over and over and over and over again. I mean, when I did my research on Dracula's Daughter, I mean, that was still hitting the cinemas in the 1950s as a double bill with something else. It's just like, that's like 20 years old and it's still hitting the cinema. So Lugosi as a vampire was utterly ingrained in the public consciousness, whether he wanted it or not.
Well, doesn't he say Dracula is a curse when he's on the ship?
That was when he's coming back from Britain.
Yeah.
From his, everyone says it was a failure. It wasn't a failure.
You got to read Frank Delestrito's book, Vampire Over London.
Yes.
Andy Brooks also co-authored.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, but I mean, brilliant book, and it's a fallacy.
No, I agree.
But
I love that book. I read it over and over.
To research In fact, if you read in the beginning bit all the thank yous, you
Yeah.
might see a familiar name in there.
Yes, 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 yes. It's you're familiar with the film Sam and what was it? Stan and Ollie that came out a few years ago, right? Where it talked
Yes.
about their last tour. I wish some producer or some streaming service would do Bela Lugosi's last tour of Dracula as either a streaming series or a movie. I think it'd be fascinating. But
Yeah. Yeah.
nobody cares what I think. But that would be very interesting, I think.
Well, no, it's interesting because I'm doing a new project. And so I'm having to read lots of stuff about Ed Wood.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about. I'm going to go. We're still going to talk about Curse of the Demon, but tell us about your Ed Wood project right now.
I've been doing some book chapters for Simon Bacon and Palgrave. So I've done a chapter for the Palgrave Book of Vampires on Nosferatu, and I'm doing on the Palgrave Book of Zombies a chapter on White Zombie. And I was doing a chapter on the undead films of Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi. But I can't, I've had to withdraw that section because my wife got ill, unfortunately. She's okay now, thankfully, and what have you. So it all went a bit pear-shaped, and all my notes for all the films is like 2,000 words here, 4,000 words here, 6,000 words here, and it's meant to be like an 8,000 word chapter, and I can't bring it in. There's like 7 films, and I can't bring it in at that level.
Yeah,
because there's just so much. So my current project is a complete reevaluation of Grave Robbers from Outer Space.
Well, that'll be fascinating.
Which is erroneously called Lugosi's last film, and it really annoys me because it isn't his last film.
I guess
his last film is The Bride of the Monster.
Yeah. Well, he was also in the black. What's it called?
And The Black Sleep, but
barely in that movie.
But and he's a mute in it, and it's but with obviously Plan 9. It's not fair to call it Lugosi's last film because he had no knowledge of it.
That's true.
The film footage, although there's an interview with Edward D. Wood Jr. shortly before he died, that was published in Cult Movies magazine, and he said he paid Lugosi like $1,000 just to dress up so he could take some shots, whereas Gary D. Rhodes has proven through newspaper articles that he was actually had started doing some footwork on the Tomb of the Vampire, because that was also in a few trades talking about that film. Although Gary does point out that in the script that he's published, the scenes that were filmed to what's in the script don't necessarily marry up. It might be a case of Wood put some stock footage together to show to potential investors.
Probably.
But to say that Plan 9 is Lugosi's last film is really not fair because he had no knowledge of it. The footage that was taken of him was used, as we all know. But it's not footage that was filmed for the film. Does that make sense?
Yes. There was no intention of making that movie when he shot the scenes outside of Tor Johnson's house and also coming out of the cemetery and things like that.
And also, there's a really, really interesting scene in that film of Lugosi where he's obviously a vampire. And it was obviously shot in 54 because he looks a lot healthier in this one particular shot than he does in the graveyard scene with the cape. And that's where, as the vampire, he goes into the house. It's literally a blink as you miss it scene. I mean,
No, I know.
I have
I
to
know what you're talking to. A guy that's seen Plan 9 180 times, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes.
and he looks so much healthier in that scene, but he's also a vampire.
For
So I think my logic is that Wood did this footage to try and get investors interested in the tomb of the vampire. I mean, who knows where that script is? I mean, there are two scripts available, sort of, at this moment for Plan 9, which is in 1990, Malibu brought out the original screenplay, which has a lot of different stuff to it. Like, there's no Carswell intro. And then on the Internet Archive, they also have a script for Plan 9, but that is a later script because that has Carswell's introduction and what have you. So who's to say how many variants of scripts there were? I mean, and we know there was at least 4 or 5 scripts or partial scripts for Dracula's daughter. But and we don't know how many there were for Wood's films.
That's interesting. I'll look forward to that coming out. All right, that'll be interesting.
So that's going to be a big piece on the Undead films with Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi.
That'd be fantastic to, one thing that's interesting is when you look at the history of these films, if Bride of the Monster had been bought by I assume it was Allied artists, if they had bought it, Lugosi would have played the role of the Russian agent in Bride of the Monster, and Karloff would have played Lugosi's role, and Lon Chaney would have played Lobo's role. So I guess to some degree we're fortunate that didn't happen, so we could see Lugosi.
But I mean, I know that the Golden Turkeys go on about Edward D. Wood being the worst director of all time.
He wasn't.
I would argue against that. He had very limited. If you take a look at The Bride of the Monster, yes, there's some issues between that daylight and nighttime scenes and what have you. Yes, some of the dialogue is a bit pants, but that could have been, had the money been invested, had Wood had the Hollywood money invested into it, we wouldn't be sitting here saying that's not a very good film because of this, and this. We would be saying that is Lugosi's targets, like Karloff's major last film that was targets. The Bride of the Monster would have been the same for Lugosi, especially with that home speech and what have you.
Yeah, that's a classic line, isn't it? Well, I'm glad you let us. I'm looking forward to your article. I don't know if it's an article or a book on Plan 9.
At the moment, it's like this because everything is research. So I find everything I can, and I collate it, and then once I have my opening paragraph worked out in my head, it
comes
just
together.
flows from there. I will send it to you.
Oh, I'd love to see it. I won't share it with anybody. Okay, I promise you. Well, let's go to the last in your book. Let's go to Curse of the Demon. And the question I just want to ask is, why was Carswell more sympathetic, or Carson and Carswell, in the movie? And what is the name of the story that he's in again? It's a
1911 short story by Montague Rhodes James called Casting the Runes.
Casting the Runes, yeah.
And in that short story, many people believe that Carswell is based on Aleister Crowley.
You mentioned that, yeah.
But Crowley didn't become the Beast until much later. So although Crowley did go to Eton or Cambridge, one of the two, I can't remember off the top of my head, and did have some notoriety, he wasn't the fully fledged monster that he would become. So, but Carswell in that short story is absolute. There's no redeeming quality at all. I mean, he invites all these kids.
Oh yeah, the short story is a bad guy. He's more sympathetic in the movie. Go on.
But he invites these kids to a party at his house and shows them this frightening film where they see this. In this film, this child is running through the woods of around his house, and then they see this white hoppity thing that eventually grabs the kid and tears him asunder, and then that freaks kids out. But in Curse of the Demon - Night of the Demon, Carswell's are more of a. They show him to be more of a human character, but also very cleverly, or even though he is obviously wicked, and they also show him to be just as trapped by the witchcraft that he uses. Like he says to his mum, if it's not them, it's me. So he's just as trapped by it as like his disciples and what have you. So
I found that movie to be very terrifying at the end, where they're almost trying to swap it back and forth on the train.
But you see, the ending on a rewatch, a very recent rewatch, I have to say, got me was the very last shot is of the train station. The train station is empty.
Yeah. So you wonder if they died, right?
So you wonder whether they were all got.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, even though Carswell did manage to save the piece of paper that he'd passed on, and he got literally ripped apart, who's to say that the others didn't either? Holden and what have you.
That's a good point. That movie reminded me of a movie I don't think is nearly as good. But was it the Earth Dies Screaming or something? I can't remember. It was just, I mean, you may think I'm nuts to think that, but it just kind of reminded me of a better version of, because a sense of helplessness at what's going to happen and everything, and trying to overcome something, and Carswell being this kind of sympathetic figure, but bringing horror to everything he does. Yeah, more or less. That's just me. I could be wrong.
I mean, it was sort of remade by Sam Raimi as Drag Me to Hell.
I've seen Drag Me to Hell, and I remember you reading that. I hate the negative ending.
Really rate it?
What?
I don't really rate that film. I really want to, because obviously it's got so many homages to M.R. James in it, and he's like he's my favorite author.
Is he?
Yes. See, I'm a bit of an antiquarian on the quiet, so old horror films, old supernatural writers.
Well, what's interesting? We talked about Dark Eyes of London, and just on a lark about 6 months ago, I read the book by Edgar Wallace.
Okay.
And I loved that book so much. I have now read 6 other Edgar Wallace mysteries. He's become one of my favorites now. And the good thing is you can buy him on Kindle for free because he's in the public.
Oh, can you?
Yes.
I did a piece on the Karloff's 1933 film, The Girl.
Yeah.
And I tracked down a reasonable priced copy of the book by Frank King, because trying to find a copy of the stage plays, it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack. So I managed to find a copy of the book, and it's really, I think they just borrowed the title.
Sometimes that
there's really not a lot in it, but I enjoyed researching that one, I have to admit.
Well, even in your story, in your essays in the book about the Black Cat and the Raven, they borrow very liberally from from Edgar Allan Poe.
Yes.
Yeah, that's for sure. And those, one thing about Edgar Wallace also is I've tried to find some West German films based on his mysteries that were made in the late 50s. They're hard to find, though, because they came out with some. I imagine they were played in England probably, though, too. You'd be surprised how many.
Oh, I don't know.
It was a series of movies that came out of West Germany, but that's neither here nor there. So we're going to put a link to the book. Hold it up one more time for us. Where does imagination end
and reality begin? Re-examining the horror classic.
Bear Manor Media. And tell us where that quote comes from.
The quote comes from, there's a confrontation between Carswell and Holden at a kid's party. Holden's he has, and Carswell's just done this windstorm. That's fun. And Holden is still just as disbelieving. And Carswell says, well, it would be a bit much if I called up a fire demon. And he basically says, where does this imagination end and reality begin? And I thought, oh, that's such
perfect title,
brilliant quote. And because in the book, that's the chapter which is completely different to all the other chapters, because I look at both the literary and celluloid Carswells and their different evils. I thought it's the last chapter, but it has to be the title.
Well, once again, the book was wonderfully researched, very entertaining.
Thank you.
And it provided new insights into films that I had seen before, and also intrigued me to watch, like I Married a Witch, a film I had never seen before. And I have to do this now. We're Plan 9 Crunch, and Plan 9 Crunch is on YouTube, where you can subscribe. TikTok, you can like us. Sometimes my daughter, Sophie, does things on there. And we're at Plan 9 Crunch podcast and blog on Facebook. And we have a blog called plan9crunch.com that we have had since 2007. Steve D. Stones, who's an art professor and cult film fanatic too, from Weber State University in Ogden, Utah. We do this together. And lately my son, who's now 20, he's big on kaiju. He's been writing kaiju things on that blog too. And this has been it's been a lot of fun. And Matthew, I love your book, and I can't wait for the Ed Wood stuff. And I'm going to start reading We Belong Dead so I can read more of your stuff. Thank you for visiting us from Cornwall. And
you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And that's a wrap.